the caller that's called in, can you tell me your name, please?
Hey, Carolyn, this is Kelsey Schlein. I'm just listening in as an attendee.
Okay, thanks.
So Allie, we're just waiting for Anne, right? So I think we have 9 of us in attendance. It looks like 9 CAC members.
Fall asleep, I guess. Yeah, we can go ahead and get started.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Allie Pesh, and I'm the chair of the Crozet CAC. This meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with Emergency Ordinance number 20-A6, an emergency ordinance to ensure the continuity of government during the COVID-19 disaster. The committee members who are electronically present at this meeting are, just going to read, Brian Day, Doug Bates, Joe Four, Josh Rector, Costas Albertis, Sean Bird, Mike Kunkel, and Valerie Long. And we have Jenny Moore, our Planning Commission rep. And hopefully we'll have Anne shortly. The persons responsible for receiving public comment are the Crozet Community Advisory Committee and the Albemarle County Department of Community Development. The opportunities for the public to access and participate in the electronic meeting are posted on the Crozet Master Plan Update webpage at www.publicinput.com/imaginecrozet and on the Albemarle County calendar. We also have Andrew Newpol, Carolyn Schaefer, Jim Heilman, Andy Reitelbach, and I don't actually see Rachel, so not Rachel. We have somebody else though, is that it? Those are our, some other presenters and county staff members. Earlier today, Joe sent us out the minutes from the August meeting. So now if everyone has, have you all reviewed the minutes, and does anybody have any corrections?
I move acceptance of the minutes and thank Joe for preparing them.
I'll second that. But I do have a question. Ally, because you have to read these statements at the beginning and the end of the meeting, is there any chance we need to have those in the minutes?
I don't know, Andrew.
I don't think so. I can check to see what the planning commission is doing. I don't think we have the statements in there.
Okay.
But I think, as long as we notice the meeting at the beginning and go through that procedure, I think we're covered as far as the purpose of the meeting, and then the minutes should explain that. So, but I can double check with the planning commission. I think we're probably
Okay, Andrew,
not a lawyer.
you don't have to have the whole verbiage. You just have the code that starts out. You can look on the website at the planning commission agendas, and that will show you what you need to put in there.
Okay. Good question, Brian. Thank you. So I think that was all we needed.
Yeah, I'll update that code language using whatever you put it in the announcement for the meeting, Ally. I can add that.
Okay. So Andrew, can we go ahead and voice vote that?
Certainly, I'll just unmute everybody in the panel real quick. You can do a voice vote whenever you're ready, Allie.
All right, everyone in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. So tonight we have Jim Heilman from the county to talk about voting procedures.
Okay, hello everyone. Glad to be with you tonight. We have a little election coming up, and it's kind of the perfect storm of an election. I've been I used to be your registrar of voters. I'm the secretary of the electoral board now. And I've been conducting elections in Albemarle County and overseas since 1988. I've never seen an election quite like this one. It's a perfect storm because, number one, a presidential election is always a storm. Number two, we have a whole raft of new election laws that we're going to be operating under, and some of them just got passed Friday. So we're really working hard to try to implement all these things, particularly these last-minute things. Third, we have certain voices that say that mail-in ballots are fraudulent. We have other voices that say that you can't trust the U.S. mail and you shouldn't be using it. And kind of overarching everything, we have COVID-19. So I wanted to go through a few things about what's happening for the election and go through registration and go through the 3 ways to vote. And you all being hyperactive citizens, you probably know a lot of this, but your neighbors and friends don't. And at the end, I want to ask how you might be able to help, either as the CAC or individually, help us get the word out to people on how to vote and how to register. As far as what's on the ballot, of course, we got the presidential. I just checked today, and it's been changing. It was changing last week as to what was going to be on the ballot presidentially. Kanye West, you may have known, got on the Virginia ballot and then was kicked off the Virginia ballot. He's appealing that, but ballots are being printed even as I speak. So I think we have 3 presidential races on the ballot. The Democratic, of course, the Republican, of course, and the Libertarian. I don't think we have anything other than that. And then we have the U.S. Senate race between Mr. Warner, the incumbent, and Mr. Gade, the Republican challenger. We have the congressional race, which, of course, is sort of an open seat between Bob Good, the Republican, and Cameron Webb, the Democrat. And then we have 2 constitutional amendments. One is one establishing a redistricting commission. Another is providing property tax relief to certain disabled veterans. The hard one of those, and we hate having constitutional amendments on a presidential ballot because it holds up the line, because people don't know that they're there, and then they don't know what they mean, and they want to ask questions, and we can't answer questions. The redistricting commission amendment is probably going to be the tough one on that because it is kind of intricate. But that's what the ballot is going to look like. Want to talk a little bit about voter registration. Kind of concerned because normally right now we have a pretty good spike in voter registration before a presidential election. We're not having that spike really now, and that's largely because there are no voter registration drives as we normally know them, because people aren't going door to door, people aren't out on the mall signing people up, all those other ways that we normally get them. The political parties can't do what they normally do. So we're not having much action, and that concerns me, particularly for new citizens, particularly for people turning 18 by November 3rd. So I wanted to say a little bit about how people can register to vote. You can come into the county office building on 5th Street, where the voter registration office is. People do not have to come inside. In fact, we don't have them come inside. We come out to you with the voter registration application and have you fill it out outside in your car if you want to, and then get you registered that way. Also, at most government offices you can register, but as we know, so many government offices are closed. The one that people use mostly is the DMV, and I believe you still have to have an appointment to get into the DMV, so that's not a very good way to register. The way that we're getting most registrations is online, and people can find the online application either by going to albemarle.org and clicking on the elections department, and that will give you a link to it, or they can go straight to the state online source, and that's why I'm going to put my one little prop up, which is the address for that. You all might want to write this down: vote.elections.virginia.gov. And that takes you to what's called the Citizens Portal. And the Citizens Portal gives you the inroad to getting to that voter registration application. To do it online, people do have to have and supply their Virginia driver's license number. Reason for that is because you have to sign it, and the only way you can sign it online is by the system taking your signature from your driver's license or whatever and plopping it into that online registration. So those are the main ways to register. The deadline for registering and also for updating registration. And people, a lot of people that only vote every 4 years, they've moved and they've moved again, and they don't think about updating their voter registration. And depending on where they moved and when they moved, they may or may not be able to vote in the place that they're registered, which would be their old place. So all of that needs to be done by October 13th. As long as it's postmarked by October 13th, or if it's done online by 11:59 p.m. on October 13th, we'll get them in the system. Does anybody have any questions? Please go ahead and raise your hand if you do have questions as I go along. No questions so far? Okay. Then there are 3 ways to vote: in-person early, mail voting, and in-person on election day. And the county electoral board has recently unanimously adopted a statement, a position statement, that says that we, the Albemarle County Electoral Board, strongly encourage our citizens, our registered voters, to vote early, in person, or by mail in order to avoid long lines at the polling place. However, we want to assure people that all 30 of our county polling places will be open on election day, and that we are making our best efforts. Hello, Ann. Making our best efforts to ensure that those polling places will be safe and clean. Now, having said that, the 3 ways to vote, In-person early voting is something that is new for us. We've had absentee in-person voting for a long, long time, but this is a different animal. And in-person early voting starts next Friday, September 18th, at the county office building at 5th Street. And we've taken over the big conference room there, and that is going to be a polling place, basically, from September 18th until October 31st, right before the election. And people will go there, and unlike when they did it as an absentee, when you had to fill out an application and that had to be processed and then you got to vote, no, this is just like a regular polling place. No reason needed, no application that you need to fill out. You do need to have ID, but you don't have to have photo ID anymore like you have in the past. And in fact, even if you have no ID, you can still sign a statement that you are who you say you are, and then you're allowed to vote. And you're going to be voting on the machine just like you do on a regular election day. We have those hours, they're regularly the Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5, but we're going to have that site open 7 a.m. on Tuesday morning, so it would be 7 a.m. till 5. And on Thursdays, we'll have it open until 7 p.m. at night, so 8:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. And we are expecting to see a lot of traffic there, particularly right in the beginning and towards the end. That site will also be open for voting the last 2 Saturdays before the election. Any questions on in-person early voting? Okay. Mail early voting is something, it's amazing. This time 4 years ago, we had something like 800 applications for absentee mail ballots. I think we topped 15,000 today, which is pretty amazing. So our office is inundated with forms and stuffing envelopes, etc. So that's already started. One thing that many of you may have gotten, maybe you can give me a show of hands, from something called the Voter Information Center. You may have gotten a few weeks ago a pre-filled out mail-in application. Yeah, several of you did. And there was a lot of talk about, were these fraudulent or not? No, they're not fraudulent. Well-meaning organization. Sometimes they can't shoot straight and they get their stuff a little bit wrong. But as far as I can tell, everything was right with everyone's in Albemarle County. In fact, I'm going to use it myself. So if you do have that and you want to vote by mail, it's perfectly all right to do that. Otherwise, people can call the office, and let me give you the office number if I can, 972-4173, and they can call and get a mail application sent to them, or, of course, do it online, once again, at vote.elections.virginia.gov. And once again, you need your Virginia driver's license in order to do that. But that's where we're going to get a lot of our business before Election Day by people voting by mail. The third way, of course, is just voting in person on Election Day. And as I said before, we're going to be open, all 30 places. And we were worried about having enough election officers, but they've been coming out of the woodwork, so we're in really good shape on that, we think so far. And we will be open, and we have a lot of COVID-19 protections in place as far as scrubbing surfaces, wearing masks. All of our election officers will be wearing masks all day long. We highly encourage the voters to wear masks. The state says we cannot force them to, but we will be doing a lot of things to try to make them wear masks before they come into the building. And we hope we won't have too much trouble with that. But those are the 3 ways. Anybody have any questions about those? Yes. I see Jenny Moore, but I need you.
Yes, I was wondering, I had 2 questions. If someone requested to have a ballot mailed to them, could they choose to do the early in-person voting, even if they've made that request already for the mail ballot to come to them? Or once you've made that request, is that the way that you should vote?
Well, that's a very good question. What a lot of people are going to do that have applied for the mail ballot, they're going to fill them out and they're going to bring them to the county office building, and we will have someone outside just to accept those. That way you don't even have to go into the polling room in the county office building to vote. You can just drop them off. Also, you may have heard of, and if you decide that you really want to actually put your ballot into the scanner yourself, then we can do that also when you come with that ballot in hand. It's not going to be that ballot. We're going to issue you another ballot. That's just a little technicality that we have to do. We also, you may have heard about drop boxes, because that's been in the news quite a bit. We never had before had any legal way to have what we call drop boxes, just a box out there somewhere that you drop your ballot into. Once again, last week, the state passed a law allowing drop-off stations, which could either be actual boxes sitting out there. We've decided that's not really a good idea to have some box sitting out in a parking lot, that unless we have a way to have it absolutely permanently placed, somebody can walk off with it. We will have a drop box outside the county office building at 5th Street, so that'd be 24 hours. People can drop them off there. What we are trying to do, we're working on having some drop-off centers, probably the last 2 weeks before the election. That might be just pop-up tents in parking lots, hopefully in school parking lots, and we certainly want to have one in Crozet if we're able to do this, which will be staffed, and certain hours we'll have to advertise them. People can't go vote there. There won't be machines there, but they can drop off those mail ballots. So several things to do with those mail ballots if you want to.
Great, thank you.
I saw another.
Oh, go ahead. My one other question quickly was just for those who requested to have a ballot mailed to them. When should people start expecting to see those arriving in the mail?
If the state doesn't throw us any more curves, and if Kanye West doesn't win his appeal to get back on the ballot, which means we'll have to reprint a whole lot of ballots, you should be seeing those. We will be mailing them out by September 18th. We have to mail them out. We may start mailing them out a couple days early because our local post office is not going to be able to, we might be up to 17,000. They're not going to be able to handle those in one day, so we might take them in 2 or 3 days early. But you should be seeing them, if you've sent it in, you should be seeing them by September 21st, I would say. And also, that brings up another point. People are really worried about the mail. We don't think there's really going to be a big problem with that, although we are urging people to do it early. Don't wait until the last minute. And I didn't give the last minute on applying by mail, but October 23rd is the last day that you can apply by mail. But that still doesn't give much time for us to get the ballot out to you and you to get the ballot back to us. Any ballot that is postmarked by November 3rd and is received by us by November 6th is going to be counted. So that's another whole new thing. Up until now, anything that came in by election day we counted, and anything that came in the day after we didn't count. That's not the way it's going to work this time. So that's something to look out for, and it's going to make things a little bit different when we report results. But also, there are 2 ways to track your ballot. Track your application and track your ballot. One's been around for a few years that tells you when the county office issued your ballot or when they received your application. But now you can, in addition to that, and this you can find all of this on the albemarle.org site, there's something called Ballot Scout that will actually track exactly where your ballot is. Is it in the post office out on 29? Is it in the Sandston Mail Processing Center? Is it in our private mailbox in Fifth Street Station? So there's a couple ways to make sure your ballot is getting there. Some people, if they wait until the end, we had this issue back in June. They said, I don't know whether you're going to get my ballot in time for it to vote on June 23rd. And we said, well, you can go ahead and go to your polling place and vote a provisional ballot just in case your ballot didn't get there in time. And if it got there in time, then we throw out the provisional ballot. If it didn't get there in time, then we count the provisional ballot. So we got a lot of things in place to try to make sure that everybody's ballot counts. Other questions?
Yeah, we had a question in the chat about the hours for Saturday voting.
Okay, that will be the last 2 Saturdays before the election, which I believe is the 31st, yeah, and the 24th, and those hours will be 9 to 5.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't say before, but if any attendees have questions now or in the next presentation, you can use the Q&A, or you can raise your hand and the clerk can unmute you. So
A couple other quick things. One, you probably know that since the last presidential election, we've added a precinct in the Crozet area, the Meacham's River precinct, voting at Western Albemarle. But once again, there's so many people that only vote every 4 years. So friends and neighbors of yours may not realize that their polling place has changed. They got a voter card telling them that. But if you're in that Meacham's River precinct, you might want to tell your neighbors to make sure they don't go to Brownsville or don't go out to Crozet Elementary, because that's sometimes gets to be a big issue there. Now, I have a question for you, and that is, we need to get this word out, and we've got a fairly robust public education campaign that we're starting to get the word out across the county and to target groups. But are there ways that the CAC or homeowners associations that you all might be involved in, are there ways that you can help get the word out that I can write down right now? Anyone?
I
Jim?
don't know what my raise hand is, but I think that is the attachment that the Board of Supervisors received this week ready for sharing? Because that's something that can be, that had all the details of the dates and times and all that. If that is ready to go, we just need the official word that it's ready to go, and then we will be able to share it amongst all of the lists. I mean, there are thousands of people on lists in the Crozet area and throughout the district as well. So we just need to go ahead when that is ready.
I think so, Ann, but since I don't know exactly what that attachment was, could you share it with me?
I can, and Lance Stewart was going to verify with you and Jake that it was ready and get back to us. So I didn't know if he had done that already or not,
Okay.
but yes, I can share it. Thank you.
Okay. jheilman@albemarle.org. You have my address, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else have any ideas of how we can get the word out in the Crozet area?
We had 2 comments in the Q&A box. The Crozet Community Association, the CCA, is happy to help. They can help post on their website and send information via their email list. So that's the Crozet Community Association. And it sounds like there was a Crozet Gazette article that summarizes what was just mentioned. That was mentioned by another community member as well.
Yeah, we had an article by Clover Carroll in the September issue that just came out, and it has a lot, all of the information that Jim just shared.
Okay, the Crozet Community Association, how do I get in touch?
I think that Tim Tolson can, he's the president of that, and he can reach out to you.
Okay, if you would, that would be great.
And then we have Bevan, an attendee that has her hand up. Did you want to go ahead, Bevan? You can unmute yourself. maybe not. And
Here I am.
okay, hi.
Tim Tolson, is that Tim Tolson I know? Is that, what is that? Is that the Crozet Community Association?
Yeah, that's Tim Tolson. He does this. Yeah.
All right, let me write that down real fast while it's up here. Okay.
Go ahead, Bevan.
There's the Nextdoor app that we have locally
Mm-hmm.
that gets the word out to all kinds of people in the area. So we could take turns posting on there as well regarding the voter information.
Okay, is that something that, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name now. Andrew, is that something that you did, if I was in touch with you, that I could get the information to you on that one?
I don't think the county is active on Nextdoor, but I think Bevan was just suggesting that citizens try to share this information.
Okay,
Correct.
if they would, that would be great.
We should probably wrap up if there aren't more questions, because we need to get to the Animal Wellness Center presentation. But
More than my 10 minutes, sorry about that.
that's okay. It's important stuff.
I will leave you all, so thanks for having me.
I appreciate you coming, and I think that was all useful information, and hopefully we can get a good turnout.
Okay, hope so too. Thank you all.
Thank you. And thanks, Lisa. I see your comment too about you also suggested Nextdoor and Jim Duncan's blog. All right, so I think I'll go ahead and hand it over to Andy, who's going to talk about the special use permit process. And I'll just remind you all that you can raise your hand when we get to questions, and you can also use the chat, which has been working well tonight. So thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Andy Reidelbach, and I'm a senior planner with the Albemarle County Planning Division. And this evening, we have a community meeting for a special use permit that has been submitted to the county for review. It is the Animal Wellness Center, application number SP 2020-15. I'll just briefly go over the process and the review process from the county side, and then I'll turn it over to Valerie Long, who is representing the applicant for this project. So the purpose of a community meeting is to share information about the proposed project that has been submitted for review, and to solicit public input on this project from community members, neighbors, nearby property owners. And then a summary of that information will be included in the staff report that is presented by staff to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. This is called a legislative review, as Board of Supervisors approval is required of this application. The Planning Commission will review it first and make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, and then the Board of Supervisors will make the final decision as to whether to approve or deny this application. And then prior to going to the Planning Commission, it is actually reviewed by county staff and other agencies such as VDOT and the Service Authority to understand the specifics of the project, and to provide a recommendation to the Planning Commission on its conformance with the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance. So the application before us tonight is a special use permit. And according to the Albemarle County zoning ordinance, a special use permit is something that must be that is permitted in a zoning district, but must be approved by the Board of Supervisors, and the board can place conditions on that special use permit to mitigate potential impacts from the use. And with the special use permit, a change in zoning is not proposed. So the project tonight is the Animal Wellness Center, which is located on Crozet Avenue in downtown Crozet. And their request is to amend an existing special use permit that they have, SP 2008-9, to do a number of things to their property, including permitting an expansion of the existing vet clinic to allow for additional parking, to expand their existing building, to construct an additional building, and to allow for the option to provide overnight animal boarding services. No residential units are proposed with this application, and the property that the Animal Wellness Center is on is a 3.4 acre parcel. The existing zoning of this property is the downtown Crozet district. And like I mentioned, as this is a special use permit, there is no change in the zoning district proposed. And in the downtown Crozet district, there are a lot of permitted uses that are permitted by right, which means there is no review by the Board of Supervisors. Those include retail, service, and office uses, residential uses, and public and civic uses. However, there is a short list of uses that require approval of a special use permit, including veterinary offices and animal hospitals. And then I also just provided some of the others that require a special use permit as well. As I mentioned, the zoning for this property and the parcel in question is highlighted in the purple, kind of in the lower middle of this map. It is zoned downtown Crozet district. And then in the Crozet master plan, the future land use recommendation is, it's kind of split between downtown in the front 2/3 or so of the property in green space in the back 1/3. There is a recommended residential density. However, as I mentioned, there are no residential units proposed with this specific project. And then recommended non-residential uses in that downtown land use designation include mixed commercial, employment, and office uses in the downtown designation, and then in the green space designation, public parks, open space, and the protection of environmental features. So this is just a map showing those designations. As you can see, the front portion along Crozet Avenue is red, which designates the downtown land use designation, and then in the rear is green, which designates the green space. So a brief timeline is that this project is currently under staff review, as I mentioned, by both county staff as well as partner agencies like ACSA and VDOT, as well as the community meeting. Once staff review is complete, this application will go to a public hearing before the Planning Commission, and then after that, it will go to a public hearing before the Board of Supervisors, and currently neither of those dates has been scheduled yet. If you have any questions or concerns or would like more information, my email is at the bottom of the screen. It's mreidelbach@albemarle.org. And now I will turn it over to Valerie Long, who, as I mentioned, is the representative for the applicant.
All right. Actually, make sure you mute yours. Sorry, bear with us. All right, is that a little better? If you will turn on your speaker though. So I'm Valerie Long, sorry for the technical difficulties. As you can probably figure out, I'm here at the Animal Wellness Center with Dr. Hillary Cook, who is the owner of the clinic and obviously one of the veterinarians here. I'm gonna let her introduce herself in just a minute. We're sitting socially distanced, we've got our masks handy, but we're trying to coordinate with 2 different computers so you can see both of us. But it does create some challenges with the audio, so we'll try and stay on top of that so we don't create any back feed. I'm gonna go ahead and let Dr. Cook introduce herself. I think you can turn your video on too. And she'll tell you a little bit about herself, and then we'll talk more about the project. Thank you.
Can you see me? Okay. Hi, I'm Hillary Cook. I have been a resident of Free Union since 2006 and owner of Animal Wellness Center since 2011. Since opening, I've been getting busier and busier and needing to accommodate more patients and clients, particularly in the alternative types of medicine that I provide, including acupuncture, chiropractic rehabilitation services, and then the exotics as well, in addition to regular medicine and surgery. So the specialty type practices, I do need extra space to perform those types of services. So that's what I'm trying to do, is get more space to include more doctors and staff to provide the services that seems to be needed. In addition, I'm interested in boarding and possibly some pet retail in those spaces as well. So yeah.
Okay, can you all hear us okay? I'm gonna make sure we have one speaker on. Okay, so I do have a few slides to show you that sort of follow on to those that Andrew showed. So I will share my screen here. Bear with me. Oh, I think I have to do it. I'm used to doing this when I have two monitors. Okay, hopefully you all can see that. All right. So I'll just go through these slides. It doesn't seem to work in slideshow mode, usually. There we go. So I think we've covered most of the things. There's a special use permit application pending. I think most of you know this area well enough. Maybe you are a patient, or one of your pets is a patient here at Animal Wellness Center, or just driving by, but on Route 240, right on the edge of the downtown area. Showing you some context here, its relationship to Crozet Avenue, the library, and then sort of behind the property is portions of Old Trail. This is a close-up of the parcel. You can see the building there is an existing building where Dr. Cook has had her business since 2009, and there's a small parking lot in front. There is a small little landscaped area in the back, and I'll show you in a moment, a large portion of the area in the back is designated floodplain. There's some images from the front of the building, just in case anyone isn't quite as familiar with it, to help get your bearings. You can see the parking lot there. That's one of the other challenges for Dr. Cook and her practice, is with the growth they've experienced and the introduction of these alternative therapies, there's always a wait for parking. They have a large number of employees there at one time, up in the range of 12 to 15 many times, and there's not that many parking spaces left over for their patients and clients. This is just a view from Crozet Avenue looking down the driveway towards the office. A few other views from sort of the edge of the driveway looking at the street, different angle of the parking lot, and then in the rear of the property where the floodplain is, there's an area where they exercise some of the pets that are going through care. And then one other view from Crozet Avenue, an angle you may be more familiar with, and you can see the sign for the business there on the right-hand side. And then this is just the opposite direction. All the locals know this area well, I'm sure. As Andy indicated, the property is zoned downtown Crozet district, the area there in purple, and many of the lots to the north are also zoned downtown Crozet, and then some of the lots to the south and east are zoned R2 residential. This is a map of the Crozet master plan showing that the property, the front portion of the property is designated for downtown for those types of uses, and then the back portion that essentially overlays the floodplain is designated for green space. There's just a map showing the relationship or the boundaries of the floodplain to the rest of the parcel and the rest of the developable portions of the property. You can see a small building in the lower center of the lot. That's a storage building. This is just a close-up aerial view to show, again, the relationship of the floodplain to the existing building, and you can see the outline of the existing parking lot a little bit better. It's part of the special use permit application package. And again, as Andy mentioned, our application is to amend an existing special use permit that the Board of Supervisors approved back in 2009 that allowed for the use of this property as a veterinary service and allowed for parking. I show this to again show the relationship of the boundaries of the parcel, the area, the large area that is floodplain. And the area in red is a easement that, so I should back up and mention that Dr. Cook does not own the property. She's been renting the property from the current owner, who also happens to own the same parcel to the north. So that makes for a friendly neighbor. She is planning to purchase the property if this is approved and other things go well. But we wanted to show you this, the prior or the current owner, in working with the county during the Crozet streetscape improvement project, roughly about 10 years ago, worked with the county and granted an easement to the county for drainage. And the boundaries of that easement area are shown in red, kind of wraps around the property. There's a small little, I think it's a dry creek or maybe a portion tributary of a creek that runs through here. And so it traces that. As some of you may know, and is shown here on this plan, the county owns this parcel to the south, and that's part of the, as I understand it, the future downtown stormwater management facility, sort of man-made wetland area. And so this drainage easement helps the county and the efforts of the downtown community redevelop by providing a route for that drainage to go. The challenge with that is it does further constrain the development areas of the parcel. Obviously, the area in blue, the floodplain area, cannot be developed with any buildings or parking, or really much of anything at all, very limited. And then likewise, the area where the drainage easement is located, buildings cannot be located in that area. This is a page from the concept plan showing some building and parking envelopes, and this is proposed to be the conceptual plan that, if the special use permit is approved, would govern redevelopment of the property. And I'll just sort of walk you through. This is, again, the existing building, and there's an existing parking area roughly here. Dr. Cook is proposing a small addition to the existing building in this area so she can add more space, again, for doctor's offices, file storage, equipment rooms, treatment rooms, that sort of thing. This area would be an expanded parking area. This entire area would likely not be parking, but we just show, we haven't obviously designed the actual parking lot boundaries yet, but just showing generally where parking could go. And then this area here is proposed for a second building that would become the primary building for the business. And then the existing building in the back would be used for boarding if that is approved. So that's the general concept. One issue that may get a little bit technical, but I'll go ahead and mention, is the Crozet, downtown Crozet zoning regulations. As some of you may remember from when that zoning ordinance was, portion of the zoning ordinance was being developed, is the downtown Crozet district is intended to promote a sort of new style of development with buildings up close to the street, somewhat similar to the way you see the buildings along Crozet Avenue, closer into downtown, where you know, the new library is located, the Blue Goose building, those buildings right up close to the road to frame that streetscape and create that small town feel. And so there's a requirement in the ordinance, essentially, that buildings be built very close to the front property line. Right now, there's an area here in crosshatching that is contemplated to be dedicated or donated to VDOT for future road improvements to Crozet Avenue. But right now, the front boundary is, hopefully you all can see my cursor, is essentially the front boundary of the parcel goes into the middle of Crozet Avenue, which is fairly typical for properties in this area. But the proposal, VDOT has asked that the land be dedicated to VDOT. And so this area would be given to them, which would then effectively move the boundary of the property to this area where we show it as the proposed property line. That has two benefits. One, it provides land for VDOT to make any future right-of-way improvements, but it also would enable the building to actually comply with the Crozet setback regulations, because there's a maximum setback. Building can only be set back 10 feet from the front property line, or up to 20 feet if the board grants a waiver and allows it. And again, as you can, I know there's a lot going on in this slide, but this area, and if you can see the red through there, is again the boundaries of that drainage easement that we have to work around. So the concept plan is set up to show that the building will be as close as possible to that front property line. We have to just coordinate all those logistics with VDOT and the easements and so forth. And then finally, we have just a conceptual stormwater management plan. Just that's a requirement of the ordinance to show that you can comply with those regulations and requirements. And again, this shows sort of a building footprint or building envelope. The entire area wouldn't necessarily be comprised of a building, but just that it can be somewhere in this location. And likewise, this is a parking envelope. And then we show a proposed pedestrian connection between the two buildings. So obviously employees, clients, customers can go back and forth. And I believe that is that's all that we had. I'm going to stop sharing, and we are happy to answer any questions about the application that anyone might have. And we'll figure out between the two of us who's the best one to answer your questions. So.
Thanks, Valerie. I think that covered a lot. So anybody have any questions? Joe?
Yeah, just two quick questions. One, Dr. Cook, I believe you mentioned that part of the expansion would include pet retail. Is that selling pets or pet accessories? Just wasn't sure that term. And then the second one, maybe this is a Valerie question, was about I know it's still conceptual, but the relative size or scale of a building. Are we talking, 1 story like this one, 2 stories, 6 stories? I don't know if we had a sense of the relative size.
So no selling of pets. So just good pet food and treats and collars and things of that nature. We don't have anything in the area, so it seems to be something somebody's always asking me about.
And then Joe, to answer your question, I'm sorry, I meant to include that in my comments. The Crozet, downtown Crozet regulations do require that the building be a minimum of 2 stories. Unless you have to get special permission to have 1 story. So the plan is for it to be 2 stories. So, it may be a little bit more space than Dr. Cook needs right now. She hasn't really, gotten to the point of having an architect or anything like that, but she certainly has some ideas. But we certainly plan to have it be a 2-story building to comply with that regulation.
Okay,
so,
great. Thank you.
I'll mention for what it's worth, the reference to the retail pet supplies. Dr. Cook has a very small area right now where she sells those things. And I think I'll defer to the zoning folks from the staff, but I think that's considered an accessory use to a veterinary clinic that would be allowed. But it would be certainly wouldn't be more than an accessory use, a small portion of it. So, but I agree, as a pet owner living in Crozet, I would like to have the ability to get a few pet supplies nearby. Any other questions or comments from anyone on the CCAC or maybe anyone in the public?
We do have someone. I'll go ahead and get it moved in. Perfect. You can go ahead and mute.
Okay.
Speak.
I am one of Dr. Cook's clients. My pets have been to her for 5 years. And the dog that I had most recently had cancer. And with the parking being as restricted as it is, it was difficult, excuse me, when you had a pet who had cancer in her foot to be walking a long distance to get to the clinic. And it certainly would be beneficial to her to be able to do some of these other things that we're lacking in Crozet, such as boarding. And they do a wonderful job with things like the acupuncture and those sorts of things, which we availed ourselves of. Thank you.
Thank you. Guess I'll just comment that I think it's great to see a local business doing well and expanding, or trying to expand and providing a service to the community. So I think this makes sense, and I'm looking forward to business downtown Crozet is always a great thing. So does anybody else have any comments or questions? All right, thank you, Valerie and Dr. Cook, for your presentation. And I guess we can move on to Andrew's item.
Sure, thanks, Ellie. And thank you to the applicants for that project. So we weren't sure how much time we're going to have tonight, so we didn't plan a full kind of discussion item for the Crozet master plan as we've done the past few meetings. So we had a community meeting tonight and the other presentation. So tonight we wanted to mostly have this be sort of a recap and just general discussion with you all about kind of our current status of the master plan, specifically the land use portion of the plan. We had a couple of meetings, as you all know, from May to July of this year discussing the land use recommendations in the master plan. And on last Tuesday, September 1st, we had our first work session with the Planning Commission to discuss some of these concepts. I won't go into a whole lot of detail about what we presented at the Planning Commission meeting. I also want to provide some time for you all to discuss, for those who are in attendance, either to share out your takeaways or things you'd like to talk about with the group from that meeting, and share out some information about, I think, the next steps that staff's identified that we'd like to move forward with, and get your input on the timing and how we go about all of that. So for those that weren't able to review the staff report or tune in last Tuesday for the Planning Commission meeting, we had a chance to check in with the Planning Commission about the land use content in the master plan. And this was really about the high level land use categories, not the map so much. We did this, I think, in response to some of the things we heard in July with you all about the appropriateness of some of the land use categories in the master plan, how well they really fit in Crozet. One of the things we did, the first item we discussed with the commission, was a new middle density residential land use category that came out of our discussion in July about the Whitegate Farm property. I think there was some concern there about the I think the size and scale of the urban density residential category and what people wanted to see on that property. A lot of support for the type of missing middle housing, the bungalow courts and so on that require higher density, but there was some concern about the scale and form of apartments or larger buildings. So in response to that, we took some time to vet a new land use category we're calling middle density residential. We first want to take that to the PC for their consideration, since in theory, if we use this in the Crozet master plan, we would look to apply that designation to other areas of the county in the future. So we wanted to check in with them first, see if they're on board with the concept, and then come back to you all to think about where we actually place them on the map, and I'll discuss that in just a moment. The other thing we checked in with the PC about was the downtown neighborhoods overlay. I think we called it the historic overlay a couple months back, but that would be the overlay that would apply to areas around the historic downtown district and some of the older neighborhoods that are around downtown. Again, some additional criteria for incentivizing affordable housing creation that is consistent with the existing kind of built character of those neighborhoods. So we got some of the feedback on that as well. I won't talk a whole lot about the specific points the PC brought up or the discussion points. I know we've got Commissioner Moore here and some other CAC members attended if you all want to share out your takeaways. But those were the two items we covered. The reason we approached it that way is, again, because we wanted to make sure that since we are introducing a new land use category in the mix, we wanted to make sure that we had a chance to just get the high level okay for the concept and then come back to you all to discuss the map and how this actually looks in Crozet and where we would apply such a category for the middle density category. So as far as our next steps with that, I would like to have a couple minutes out maybe after we discuss the PC meeting, just to think about our next steps. We would like to go back to the Planning Commission in late October. I think we've penciled in October 20th as our date to kind of try to wrap up some of the land use conversations we've had and get some feedback on any sort of outstanding parcels that are left where we are looking at changing the land use category. Before we do that, we want to make sure we have an opportunity to speak with the CAC and have you all weigh in on what the land use map will look like and where we are applying this new land use category and making any other changes. So it's kind of a part two to our July meeting. We took the time to come up with a new category in response to your feedback, and we'd like to just check back in with you all. I think the date we have scheduled for the CAC meeting in October would be the 14th, which would be pretty close to the PC meeting. We would not be able to incorporate your feedback into the staff report for that time. So we'd like to just float the option with you all tonight of scheduling a special meeting sometime in towards the end of this month or in early October. If you all are willing, I think we can discuss that tonight. If you all have any preferred time of day or just general timeline for that. I think that's, as staff, that's what we've identified in the interest of being able to keep the project moving as close to its original schedule as we can. And also just to make sure we can keep the flow of feedback going from the CAC to the Planning Commission. So I think those are the kind of things we'd like to talk about tonight. We just want to provide an opportunity first for you all to have a chance to discuss what you heard. I know there were a couple of CAC members in attendance. If you all want to share out your takeaways, I just want to provide some time for that. We'll be taking notes and listening, answering questions, clarifying questions if you have any. But just want to get your feedback on what we've brought out so far and where we go next. So.
Hi. Sorry, I couldn't tell if I was muted. Jenny, I saw your hand go up, so I guess I'll let you go ahead.
I have a couple questions and comments, and then I wanted to ask Andrew, when you're talking about getting back in front of the Planning Commission in October 20th, is that going to be a land use conversation that covers other land use topics, or will it be specific to this new category and where you might suggest that that could be appropriate in Crozet and the discussion with the CCAC? Or is it like a bigger topic about other areas that might have a change in land use designation?
It would be more general, be focused, I think, on parcel changes. Beyond the middle density, I think that's one where we know there has to be a change for that. But we would be looking at probably other land use categories and potentially some initial feedback from the conservation chapter that we discussed last month.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that, because with that in mind, and also because, unless I've missed something with here in this group, we've only really talked about as far as specific properties, 2 properties, the White Gate farm property and that which exists around it that isn't developed, and then also the property up by the Gateway Market. And so on the map that we were given for Planning Commission, there was our current land use map, and then below it was just a draft of a potential, what our new map might look like. And on that map, on purpose, you weren't showing us where this new category might go. I think, you know, to be fair, because we were having at the Planning Commission a high level discussion. But I couldn't help but to notice on that map were a series of numbers in circles all around Crozet. And then there was reference at the top of that map to a key that would by number explain, you know, why there was a change in that place. And so I've been going with the absence of that document that has the key, you know, have identified a few properties where it's what's being suggested isn't a change of substance. So for example, you have a number on the View apartment complex and you've changed that land use designation to match up with what it is. But then in other places, I can't quite figure it out. And so with that, I don't know, without having that piece of information, I worry that to engage this group, especially when we're asking for an additional meeting, if we want to do an additional meeting, I think to talk about where the new land use might go and where there are other spots that you may have identified where there's might be a suggestion on staff for a change, that may actually take more than one meeting. And I worry that even if we can get everyone together for this additional meeting and then we meet on the 14th, then you're getting in front of PC without, like you said, a lot of turnaround for staff to digest what the group said. I feel like that's a really aggressive timeline on a very important topic and one that may take time to work through when you know, for some of this, we're going to go property by property and some will be easy stuff that I can see on that map, but without having that key, I can't really see if there's going to be ones that might take more conversation. So I worry about the timeline of that. And I know you guys have had to readjust timelines, but I feel like that's a pretty aggressive timeline to have that, all that, and other people can weigh in on what they think. That's just my take on it, especially because the Planning Commission's discussion was very high level. There were no maps that were showing us where this might be. It was just sort of giving staff a nod that this is something to explore. And, you know, other questions were not just specific to Crozet, but would this make sense countywide? And then we did the overlay questions. So just like with the overlay, there's a lot of work to be done. But the general consensus on both of these was, from the Planning Commission, was, you know, thumbs up, like move and, you know, keep working on it. It sounds good. But I worry about that. That seems like a lot to get information from the public and from this group and get in front of the Planning Commission by the 20th. But that's just my suggestion, and others may have a different opinion, and maybe we can see what people think about the additional meeting. So that's all. That's what I wanted to say about that. And I don't think, other than being sure that people are clear that the Planning Commission's discussion was not centered around any specific place that this new land use category might go, it was just about the idea of it and what it intends to accomplish. And so the direction to staff was that they should continue to explore what that looks like. And for now, that's here in Crozet since we're under master plan review. So thanks.
I see Doug has his hand up. You want to go ahead?
Sure. First of all, Jenny asks all really good questions, as she always does. And I think that it is an important and intriguing concept to develop a new category that we could call a middle density. I was just curious whether or not you've researched and unearthed this concept from other jurisdictions, whether in Virginia or beyond, because I think the devil is going to be in your details. And I do think that it's going to take a couple of go-rounds to get it and get it right. So just curious as to whether or not you've reached out to other, or you know of other areas that might have done something along these lines.
Yeah, certainly. We did also got this question during the Planning Commission meeting as well. So we have been looking a lot of other localities have taken on this a lot of localities approach this through zoning reform first. Minneapolis being sort of one of the leaders in the missing middle housing zoning reform and how that would play out in current neighborhoods. So we've looked a lot at Minneapolis. We've also looked at Seattle and some other areas. I don't know if there are a lot of peer localities in Virginia that have really tackled this topic, but it is a topic that's gained a lot of traction, I think, in other communities in the past couple of years. And so I think we're trying to continue to do our research. We know there will be a lot of work we need to do to model how the considerations such as density and massing would work and how that would impact housing production. And so we've also made sure to model that too in the Crozet area. We did a couple of analyses that we included in the staff report for the Planning Commission. And we know they'll be continuing to work on that topic to make sure that's viable. We are looking at the best practices, looking at what lessons we can learn from other localities as well. Rachel, I don't know if you want to jump in at all, but I think that those are the kind of the main groups we've looked at. I think in response to one of the prior comments about the map that's provided to the Planning Commission, I'll share that we did provide that map to you all in July for that meeting with a table, but I know a number of folks weren't in attendance. But I think when we come back to the group out whatever time, we'll be sure to make sure that's sent out and updated and well labeled for you all to consider at that time.
I was going to raise this concern that I had at the Planning Commission, and Tim just brought it up in the chat here, which is that you guys talk about Minneapolis, and it's just so not comparable to Crozet. I mean, just the scale is so different that it's hard to use as an example. But I also, I think my concern is just that I fully support the missing middle category and this, like, you guys exploring, solutions for this, but I just feel like where it goes in Crozet is what the Crozet CAC should be talking about, and I am not sure where you even have in mind. And I'm also just worried that, because we tend to be flush with townhouses and duplexes that don't end up priced affordably. I just don't see how this is going to really help in practice. And then I also was a little, I don't know, I felt like we got in the press after the meeting and that we were like anti-apartments, but I feel like Crozet has just gained many apartment units, and we also are looking, and I at least am looking for apartments to go downtown. So I'm not anti-apartments or urban density. It's just a matter of holding the plan to what we've always been promised as far as a maximum build out, and working for, to make things vibrant and diverse and economically and all those things within those numbers. So anyway, I don't know, maybe Brian, I see your hand up, and maybe you have some comments since you were also present at the Planning Commission meeting.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew, as you said, and as Jenny said, the discussions at the Planning Commission were all at a pretty high level and not very specific. And I think not only for Crozet, but because the Planning Commission thinks that this missing middle might be helpful countywide, I almost think that in order for it to be utilized, that part of the application to get that new zoning ought to be that it has to meet some kind of 50% or 60%, but not 80% of the cost of other housing. That's the whole purpose. I mean, we have this creative thing that the county commission just approved of a bungalow court. And I'm fascinated with that. And I'm fascinated with some other creative support or creative approaches, I guess I should say, that we've talked about that to some degree already exist along the St. George Avenue, an additional unit here and there and so forth. But the affordable housing we've seen in places, and I'll just use it because it's so large, is in Old Trail. Most of it's not affordable. And so I don't think it's helping us accomplish our goal. And I'm very interested in opening up innovative ways to use potential slight or even relatively serious increase in density, but if and only if it brings about a serious contribution to affordable housing. Doesn't mean that some of the units couldn't be more regular market priced, but we're just not getting where we need to if we're going to be able to house the people that are going to work in our schools, in downtown Crozet, and retail and service and so forth. And so I think that as we work on this, not just for Crozet, but as likely something that will be adopted countywide, that we need to find a way that it really works. Because as I said at the other meeting, my concern is very much about the fact that increasing density when infrastructure just cannot possibly keep up, and even the stuff we've been promised is now on delay, and most of what we need to have promised hasn't been, Looking Hope Bridge, et cetera, that if it just becomes a tool to increase the density, we have to oppose it instead of support it. And I don't want to do that. But I think we need to really create the incentives for real affordable housing.
Thanks, Brian. Tom wrote that email to the group a few months ago, and I think if he were here, he would ask again why Crozet is being asked to accept more density when we've for the last 20 years fulfilled all the requirements that the county put forth with 15% for all those things. And it's like we're a victim of our own success at this point, and it's sort of being used against us that that we have to keep getting denser, and meanwhile the infrastructure just hasn't been there. So at some point, I worry that the bubble will burst, and everyone that wants to move here, the schools will be overflowing, and there will be traffic like crazy. So maybe things will turn more affordable then, because it will become a less desirable place to live. So Joe and Jenny both have comments.
Yeah, Allie, I just wanted to sort of reiterate Allie's point. I mean, I think our discussion from last time, especially when we were talking about that proposed property along the veterinary clinic right across from the Acme, I think some people there was some concern about that. And I don't even know that the concerns about that discussion last time were so much about density, that they were townhomes, right? As much as it was 113 units. I think, that the concern here seems to be a lot about form and size. You know, it's not necessarily density for density's sake. It's like, as Ali mentioned, I don't think most people would bristle at the idea of a small apartment complex near downtown. You know, if it was 24 units, in a 1 acre spot or whatever you're allowed to do, I forget the exact zone, but if it was 12 units or 18 units or 24 units, I don't think most people would bristle too much. The concern has been these large, massive apartment projects, 100 units, 200 units. And Ali's right, it hasn't been affordable. You know, I mean, right now, the cheapest, you can get a 748 square foot unit at the View for $1,295 a month. That's an apartment. That's not affordable. So it's not like apartments are a panacea here.
Plus those are rentals. Just so.
They're what?
Those are also just rentals. So.
Yeah. So I mean, and I guess, Andrew, the other thing, so yes, I think Brian's point is exactly right. I mean, we're interested, I think, in these different forms and these different options, but it really does come down to affordability. And I don't think the concern is density for density's sake. It's the number of people at some point overall coming in. It's not the density per se, it's the overall numbers. And the concern is not never more people, but the concern is for timing. Now, one thing I would just raise too is we keep using the term missing middle, and I forget where I saw this, but really it's like the missing lower. I mean, I don't know what the lower is, right? I mean, we talk missing middle, but I don't know what the lower is. If lower is supposed to be a 748 square foot apartment for $1,295 a month, because that's an apartment in Crozet, I don't know what the low is. So, I mean, maybe that's just a matter of terminology. I don't know, but it seems to me missing middle is it's kind of an odd terminology to use. Really, I think a lot of us, what we're concerning is there's no low, there's no lower. And again, some people might say, well, that's what apartments are for, but not $1,300 for a 748 square foot apartment.
Right. I mean, we just got so many apartments. So I'm just curious, like, you know, where are they filling up? Are the kids going to our schools? Like, how is this going to plan out before we start increase, you know, exactly what you said. It's not really about density. It's about our total build out number and how many people are going to be living in the Crozet growth area. And the more we increase density in these places, that the bigger that number becomes. So it's not a really, anyway, thank you, Joe.
And that build out, and as Ali raised last time, right, the master plan, we had this conversation about the master plan. Yes, there's a build out in the master plan. There's an anticipated, you know, density. There's anticipated build out in the plan. But again, that plan is predicated on Eastern Avenue, Western Park, new school in Crozet, hasn't been built for 10 years, hasn't been built for 30 years, now indefinitely postponed, was supposed to be built in 3 years, but indefinitely held off because of COVID funding concerns. So, you know, at some point you hit the wall and you say, look, it's not about people moving here at some point. Great, we've got a number of build out and maybe it can be done, but it can't be done unless the infrastructure is there that's supposed to be anticipated for there.
Yeah, and last time David made the point that, you know, they don't build it until the people come. But in this case, I feel like we're here and they still haven't built it. I mean, the kids are in the trailers and, you know, we still don't have the school expansion. So.
And I'm sorry, Andrew, can I just, one more quick one?
Yeah.
Because Andrew, I realized I kind of drifted from your question, which is about the focus on missing middle. I know, I mean, really, seriously, the question about what is the lower, I think that's an important consideration here. But second, I just want to say in terms of informing this idea of missing middle, I think what seemed to be driving, and this came up a few months ago when we talked about the neighborhood overlay, I think the two concerns for people, it's the size of these projects, the scope of these projects, and the form. It's not that they're apartments for apartment's sake. Again, a small apartment project near downtown, I don't think people would bristle at. I don't think people bristle at townhomes necessarily, but 113 of them lined up along Three Notch Road, people are going to bristle at that. So it's some combination of form, is the appropriate size, form, not necessarily the density per se, but the overall scope of these projects, I think is what people are bristling at.
Right. Well, which is one good thing about this new category proposed is it actually does include some form more, than more form regulations potentially. But I guess Jenny and Anne both have comments.
I appreciate, I thought of this when Brian was making his comments, and then everyone else has made really great comments to sort of follow on to what Brian was saying about, the general idea is if we want this affordable piece, and I think the county's in the process of looking at affordable housing policy, and everyone makes good points about what is really affordable, and and then having rentals that sort of what Joe's saying about even the missing middle. Are we really talking about getting some places that might even be lower income than what we think of as the middle? And I think what I'm hearing from people are, if we're gonna do this, let's make sure it gives us what we're trying to accomplish, right? So, but to be clear, up to this point, and the county recognizes we're doing some work on the affordable housing policy. We've had a work session. This is going to take time. But right now, Crozet has followed that policy. So we've done the percentage of affordable units for those properties rezoned. And to the comment of, are we really getting what we, when these units are proffered, are we getting what we hope to even get out of those that are questionably affordable? And so I'll share with you a number that was shared with the Planning Commission, and it's a county-wide number, but it's of those units for sale that were affordable, 45% of them actually were purchased by someone who qualified. And so that means the rest of them just sold at market rate. And because they have 90 days, I think, to hook someone up who qualifies to buy the affordable. Part of the problem there is, the people who are trying to buy the affordable, what they're trying to buy really isn't affordable, so they're not able to buy it. But that's kind of a staggering number, in my opinion, that, only 45% of the units countywide that were built, per our housing policy were actually bought by families that qualified, or individuals that qualified for that affordable price. So that gets back to, I don't think there's a resistance on the part of Crozet to, have to participate in this and have this available to our community. I think, in fact, a lot of Crozetians have been shocked to see what was built when there could have been choices made to build, different things that aren't, single family detached $800,000 homes. But in any case, I think that seeing what has happened and the loss of those units back into the market is a big driver for changing the policy. But it is also a point to, when we move forward with something new and we accept that whatever comes with that, let it get us to this goal that we hope that, that it intends to get us to. And I really would like to circle back and have, back to Andrew's question about the, timing of trying to engage this group about land use changes maybe in other places in the county, and then where this missing middle might be proposed, and what people think about having this additional meeting, and then also getting that in front of the Planning Commission by the 20th. I'd like to have people respond to how they feel about is that, seem like something members feel is a reasonable timeline, because again, as I said before, that feels like it's pretty fast, especially for a public engagement piece that I think is really important for us to have on every topic, but particularly land use. So thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. Do you want to go ahead, Anne?
Thank you. Mine is really a series of questions that Andrew may or may not want to answer tonight, but I think for me, I have a gap of knowledge about what really this missing middle is. I remember it being referred to originally as a place where there was a gap in what the zoning allowed. It did not allow small enough lots to therefore be able to build small enough houses to have them be built to be bought by people of with a lower purchase price. And that was really what Chris Fuller tried numerous times before he got to Bamboo Court to pull off in various other parts of town. So is that correct is one question. Secondly, if this new category could be created, do we have the authority to create it so it is only for these small units that are therefore have a better chance of staying affordable because they are smaller? Not that they're a great big house that's supposed to be sold at a lower price, but that they are a smaller house that will be affordable because of its size, and therefore then not have the logistical disaster of losing all of this forward. Because I think there's a huge frustration on the part of everyone that what we have tried to do for 20 years has been a flop. And so having that, I just may be way off base, but that's really where I thought this was going. And so I would love to be corrected if that's not right. Thank you.
I don't know if Andrew wanted to respond to that, but I guess I would also like to get the kids, sorry, my husband just texted me about kids. Get the group's opinion about how, if we can meet again just to talk about land use and about the timeline. It does seem a little tight to get back to the Planning Commission specifically about Crozet and the Crozet master plan land use that soon. So I think that we can meet again, have a special meeting, because before COVID, we all agreed that we were going to be meeting twice a month to do these master plan discussions. And so I feel like we've gotten away with not doing that for a long time, but maybe, especially because this is one of the heaviest or thickest categories, maybe we can go ahead and commit to meeting again. Again, not sure that we can get through it by that October 20th meeting. Andrew?
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful just to have the input from the group too. I think we can look at, I think some members have suggested, meeting around lunchtime or something. We could do morning, afternoon, or our usual evening meeting time. But I think, if there's a preference from the group, our next step would be that we would send out a poll with some potential times and see when members would be able to attend. I think that'd be our general approach. Would be, we'll come up with some potential times, just give us some criteria, and we'll try to find a time that we can meet.
When I spoke to members last month individually, it seemed pretty good support for a lunch meeting, just because of Zoom fatigue at the end of the day, especially. So yeah, I guess I'll open it up, and if no one wants to make a comment now, we'll just throw out some. Andrew will have to make a lot of time slots in his doodle poll or whatever he uses. I don't see any other hands up, so does anybody have, and there are some comments in the Q&A. I haven't gotten through all of them as well.
If I could respond quickly to the comment about the maps and the timing, I think our intent would be as staff is to take a first go at applying the middle density to areas of Crozet where we think it might be appropriate, and share that out in advance. And if we could ask you to do a little homework and study up on it and come prepared, I think that might help us have a more efficient conversation so that we can hopefully get through a good bit of topic, good bit of sites and cover all of the topics within one meeting. We were thinking 90 minutes for a meeting, which is the length of your typical CAC meetings. So that would be our approach if the group is agreeable to that.
Allie, I did see looks like there's a hand raised from one of the attendees.
Yeah, Cliff,
Yes.
unmuted. You may go ahead and speak.
Okay. Let's see. Mute.
I think try again. We could hear you for a second and now you're muted again.
Okay. How about now?
Yes, good. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay. Thank you. First, I think the land use category, the middle, whatever you want to call it, needs much greater public exposure. Basically, it's something that's unknown. Your group is talking about it. It may have seen a little exposure in the public, but I try to follow these things, and I listened to the planning commission meeting. I missed the very beginning of it last week, and I'm still not clear on what this is. I think I've communicated with Andrew and Rachel. I mean, as far as a form, I think one of the things that we're trying to achieve, opposed to the huge parking, apartment complexes, is a different form. So the R4 district, as applied in Stanton, which is all pretty much naturally occurring affordable housing, is a very effective approach to fitting more units in smaller, in a different form. And, it can be done. You're going to end up with lower rental rates. But basically what we're seeing now is that this is racing in front of the public. The public really has no chance to look at it, absorb it before it goes to the PC. That's all.
Thank you, Cliff. Yeah, I completely agree. This is like a really important category to get a bigger engagement from the public about. So it's a challenge right now, but we can't rush this forward. And I think I am curious to see where you guys are going to propose to put it. And I hope we have plenty of time to respond to your suggestions.
I'll add that we'll plan to also put it on the public input site and send out through our typical avenues information that it's up there for people to respond to. As you all know, we've had mixed success with that. Some have been really successful and some have had less than 20 responses, but we figured out.
That site is really hard to, I mean, it looks pretty, but every time I've clicked on the surveys, I've gotten a little overwhelmed. And there's a lot to read before you answer a question. And so I'm a little bit worried about that as far as, getting responses. So I don't know. I see Anna Jenny's hands up.
My question is for Andrew and Rachel. I know that we have a projected timetable with the board, but I would maintain and carry it to the board if you need to have that extended, because having an extra month rather than racing to the board in October and having a lot of pressure to somehow mash this in, to just accept the fact that we need to give ourselves another couple of meetings, October or maybe late September and mid-October, in order to make sure that there is and a chance for the newspaper to come out and more chances for people. I mean, if Cliff doesn't know what it is and I don't know how to describe it, then I'm sure there are some other people who don't get it either. And so I think that's just when you're doing something new, there's always a big learning curve, and we're still at the beginning of the learning curve. And I really appreciate the fact that you're proposing this new thing. I think it could be wonderful if we can get our hands around it and figure out, number one, what its consequences are going to be and what its benefits are going to be, and then have a better chance to recommend it and fight for it if we can get that information.
And just to remind everyone, the timeline that the board has given us on this is for final adoption. That means it's up for public hearing in front of the board in the first quarter of 2021. So.
Oh, good. We got time. That's great. Okay.
But those are public hearings, so we have to go to the planning commission for a couple work sessions, the board for a work session, then the planning commission for a public hearing, the board for a public hearing. So really, if we push this next work session from the planning commission another month, that will probably push our final timeline out a little bit beyond the first quarter for adoption.
I guess I'm just concerned that a lot of us, including our planning commissioner, isn't ready for it to go forward next month. So that seems a little more important right now. Jenny, what do you think?
I was just going to add to, well, first off, I was going to add to what Cliff said, but Cliff Fox said, but I think what you're here, I know you guys have a timeline, and it sounds like Anne's willing to help support you in an expansion of that timeline. I do feel like because we're in this unique situation, everybody's working extra hard to try to figure stuff out. So obviously things have changed, but I feel like some topics we may move through more swiftly than others. And this is one that, especially with this change, is going to require more attention and making sure the public understands. And so I think Cliff Fox's point is really getting at the heart of my concern about moving forward too quick before people understand. And I've had some people reach out to me to say, I don't really know, I don't understand this, and I know it's just starting, but you know, what do you think? Because I can't quite figure it out, and I'm busy. My kids are at home in school, and they need more time to wrap their heads around it. And I think my other comment would be just that when we're engaging the public with the survey questions, I know that's something that I think staff are struggling with, is how do you give people the information they need, and then also recognize that most people are going to spend a certain amount of time with information before they answer questions. And you certainly want them to have the information so they know how to answer the questions. But I feel like that's the piece that makes it get more time sensitive, is if you're rushing to create all this content that creates understanding so you can engage the public so they can answer questions, then you're forcing a lot in one, request for someone to sit down, take 30 or 40 minutes to read through stuff, make sure they understand it all, and then answer questions. And then also I would acknowledge that we should be careful about how we ask questions. So maybe not saying, do you agree with staff that this, there's other careful ways I think we can make sure we're asking those questions. But I think that you guys are working with this challenge of trying to create the education piece that we can't do in person and then get responses from the public. But we also know people are going to spend a certain amount of time, even without the stresses that everyone has going on. But that's why I'm asking for, staff and the board and others to consider, for this topic, can we stretch things out so we can engage the public and get people to understand this before they're asked to say where it might or might not be appropriate. And then I do feel like we can move more swiftly through other topics that maybe you'll recover some time there. because I think this is one of the ones that is the most technical and will take the longest. So I hope that helps. Whatever, I think what I'm hearing from Anne is whatever, she can do to support staff with the timeline. And hearing that from the CCAC and hearing that from Split Fox from the public, and I know there's others out there that feel the same way, then I think, we can help. If that helps staff, then that's what we're here to do too. Thanks.
Taking a little more time at the beginning will make the Planning Commission work sessions go better and everything go better going forward if we take a little extra time right now to make sure that staff has a chance to give really thorough explanations, both written and verbal for us, and that there's good understanding. And we'll catch up on the time later by not having to go back around a second time with something in the middle of the process.
Well, we are running out of time tonight. So I don't know, Andrew, Rachel, what do you need from us right now?
I think we'll send out a poll with some potential times and see if most of the group can make it. If we do want to move forward, we can look at pushing back the PC meeting and see what that impacts for our timeline is. I know today we started the process a year ago tonight with the first workshop last September. So we've definitely had a couple more meetings than we've planned on originally. I think we're okay with more, but we'll need to check out just, I think, staff capacity and timing for all this, and we'll plan to follow up with the group soon, I think, about potential times and how this continues to move forward. Rachel, do you have anything else?
I think as far as the timeline, we'll have to kind of just play it by ear and see how it goes. We'll have this next meeting, see where we end up, and kind of make that call in conjunction with leadership and the board support. So we'll move forward and just see. We'll keep checking in on timeline at each meeting we have, and just see where we are and see what makes sense.
I think it's a little tricky right now because when I went to look at the PC information, I couldn't see enough to give me an understanding, because I think you wanted a high level discussion with them. So it may all change once we get this more complete information base from you. Where the neighborhoods are, what those numbers mean, what those kinds of things might be suggested, that's going to change the world. It's just right now there's a real void of detail that, so we don't know enough to know what we don't know yet. And so I think the next round should really, really help.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that we could get more people out to a meeting like this if we have some real specific things to talk about. So I think that could be great. And I would hate for, after a whole year and everything that's happened this year, for the land use chapter of all chapters to feel rushed. So that's all. I really appreciate your work, and I hate making it seem like we're delaying you guys with getting this master plan done, which is of course what we want. We want a good plan adopted as soon as possible. All right, so we will look out for an email from Andrew, and I guess I can go ahead and read the closing announcements. The next CCAC regular meeting is tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, October 14th at 7 p.m. And details about the special meeting will be forthcoming. Opportunities for the public to access and participate in the electronic meeting will be posted at a later date in accordance with Emergency Ordinance number 20-A6 and open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. All right, thanks guys, and thanks for sticking around, and tell your friends to come next time and vote, and have a good night.
Good night, everybody. And 23 people is nothing to sneeze at. We did well.
Good.
So it's okay. We're getting there.
Thanks for the comments.